Hello, everybody. My name is Gilda Ross, and I'm the Glenbard Student and Community Projects Coordinator. I am so excited about this program because there is nothing more important than building a strong foundation with our early families and our children in this important stage of their life. And the fact that Glenbard is a high school and is committed to programming of this kind lets you know that we really do feel so strongly about it. And that's why we're so excited about tonight's program. Dr. Junlei, Dr. Dana Winters, they're here tonight. They're also speaking at a case special ed cooperative on Friday. So we've got lots of time with these two special guests, and we're delighted. I want to thank the sponsors who make this all possible. We couldn't do it without you. And of course, we couldn't do it without the participants who took the time and the trust in us tonight to be with us. Thanks to the gratitude of Dr. Li and Dr. Winters, we will be able to share the broadcast tonight. And so that's really wonderful news for all of those who will want to watch it again and share it. So thank you for that. Special thanks to the Glenbard Early Childhood Collaborative. Thank you to the District 93 Early Child Collaborative Birth to 5, where, again, we couldn't do it without you and the other sponsors who make this all possible. Let's take a look at what's upcoming. If you'll give me just one more of your attention before we begin the program. If you take the time to look at the brochure, you'll see all of those sponsors who make it possible for all of us to be here. And our ask of you is to please share the resource. If you enjoy the program, if you're a Facebook social media person, let everyone know that everyone's always welcome. No registration. Please, please, please share. Thank you. So coming up this week, we have Dr. Mona Della Hook. She's talking about beyond behaviors, using brain science to understand children's anxiety disorders and other behavioral challenges. That will be a very important program this week. So it's a busy week, you can see. Then Michelle Eichard will be talking about her book, 14 Talks by Age 14. That will be on Wednesday, March 16th at noon and 7 p.m. Then we're going to be celebrating Title IX, a celebration of 50 years of women's athletics on the 22nd. And just a preview for those of you that are specifically here for our early child program, next year we have 3 programs that we're very excited about. We've got a program with Dana Winters. We've got a program with Stephanie Carlson, a program we just engaged just today. Don't look at me. We just couldn't be more excited about the lineup. So once again, please share and please join us. We're about to start the show. Janine Waltman, who is the coordinator of the Glenbard Early Childhood Collaborative, will be introducing our speakers. And then Leah Harding from the Glen Ellen Children's Resource Center will be sharing a few comments after the program is completed. So I hope you'll stick around past 8 o'clock and hear about the Glen Ellen Children's Resource Center. So Janine, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gilda. And thank you all for joining us here today. On behalf of the Glenbard Early Childhood Collaborative, who really our mission really is to support all the families in our community with young children and connect them with what they need. And this is something I think will be beneficial for all of you here. So thank you for joining us. I have the very great pleasure of introducing our co-panelists tonight. Dr. Junlei Li is the co-chair of the Human Development and Education Department and the Solzen Senior Lecturer of Early Childhood Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. He's the creator of the Simple Interactions tool, and he's explored the use of simple interactions across a wide range of settings, from orphanages to classrooms, and is committed to understanding and supporting the work of helpers, those who serve children and families on the front lines of education and social services. In his work, Dr. Li is focused on informing practice and systems change with the science of human interactions. And along with him tonight, we're so fortunate to have Dr. Dana Winters. She's the Rita McGinley Executive Director of the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning and Children's Media at St. Vincent College. Her extensive field research, from interviewing prisoners to shadowing crossing guards, observing Head Start teachers, developing coaches in early childhood systems, has all informed her work for co-developing the Simple Interactions approach to support children, families, and their helpers. Dr. Winters describes and affirms the essential and relational practices of professionals across early childhood and interventions out of school time learning, healthcare, family engagement, and more. He's an experienced applied researcher who has served as co-principal investigator and program evaluator for consecutive NSF-funded early childhood research and intervention projects in the areas of early literacy, social emotional development, and early mathematical learning, all things that we know are so critical. She leads numerous foundation and government projects and grants to improve early childhood systems and family engagement practices. Dr. Winters serves as the UNESCO Faculty Fellow in Children and Youth Studies, collaborating with faculty around the world in the advancement of empathy development and adult-child relationships across development settings. She received her PhD in Administrative and Policy Studies from the University of Pittsburgh, and we are so grateful to have both of you here today, and I do not want to take any more time, so thank you both.
Thank you, Janine and Gilda. Thank you so much. Junlei and I are really excited to be here. This is hard to believe, a year in the making at this point, but I feel like the last 2 years, a lot of things have been years in the making. Am I right, Junlei? It's been a while since we've even been in the same location together.
Wow.
That's right. As much as we work together, although it's been quite a year, even as parents for you and I. You, like many parents, went through the helping young children going through online school over the last 2 years.
Yes, and you've wished one of your children well as they've started college. So I guess that's something that we both bring to this alongside of our work is that both Junlei and I are parents. We both have the wonderful privilege of raising 2 daughters each. A little bit different stages of life of parenting now. Junlei's daughters are 19 and 16, and mine are 11 and 8. So I'm just behind him. But a lot of our work is informed by who we are as people. We certainly can't take that away from the work that we do. And one thing that Junlei and I also have in common is that we have a deep regard for the work of Fred Rogers. Now, we actually started our work together at the Fred Rogers Center for Early Learning in Children's Media, which is located just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in Fred Rogers' hometown of Latrobe. We like to joke that we were working in the original Mr. Rogers neighborhood. And we've learned a lot from Fred through the years, probably much more as adults than we did as children or young people. But one of the things that we think about most when it comes to parenting is some of Fred's words himself as a parent, and as he was talking with other parents, and of course, uplifting sometimes the hard work of being a family. He shared with families once through Mr. Rogers' talks with parents and through a number of books. And one of those notes in particular is something that I know Junlei and I both have been keeping very close to our hearts and our minds and everything we've been doing over the last 2 years. And it was a little note that said parents can set the example for their children, of course, by just being themselves rather than trying to be perfect parents. And he went on to talk a little bit about his own parenting and came back to say that there were times when he couldn't be with his sons or when he couldn't give them undivided attention. And he said, "I've realized that everything does not have to be perfect in order to be effective." I know that this is something that gives me a lot of grace, because if Mr. Rogers can claim that he was not a perfect parent, then I guess it's okay for all of us to claim that as well. And to know that not everything has to be perfect in order to be effective. Now, the work that Junlei and I get to do in times when we're allowed to leave our homes, we do this work around the world, is in service of children's helpers. And the way we define children's helpers are anyone who is doing anything to support the healthy development of children. So that means families, that means educators, it means care workers, it means hospital nurses, it means youth workers, The list goes on and on. Now, we support the helpers for a number of reasons, but one, because we truly believe that you're not going to make a lasting impact in the development of children if you're skipping over the needs of those who are supporting their development. So how do we best help the helpers to be there for children and support the healthy development of children? We do this through convening communities, again, around the world, and really looking at the practice between people. So what happens in that space between people, the space that Fred Rogers famously referred to as holy ground, the space where our interactions happen and our relationships grow. And that is the work that Junlei and I have been doing for nearly a decade now together, is the work of something called simple interactions. And we'll talk a bit about that later. But we'd like to start tonight by thinking a little bit about what it is we can learn from helpers and from ourselves and one another about what it means to build resilience in children and families and one another. And to do this, we'd like to go back to a location that might seem a bit unlikely to find relationships and interactions growing. Now, Junlei is a child development genius. Don't let him tell you otherwise. His background in child development is pretty remarkable. And when we started to work together, my background was working a little bit more in some unlikely places, and some places where we were supporting adults in unlikely ways. And so when we started to work together, my first assignment in our work was to stand on the street corners of Pittsburgh with a video camera and see what was happening in the space between crossing guards and children. Junlei had a hunch that there was something special going on there, so we took our cameras out, and he was right. So we'd like to share with you today just a little bit of a morning of a crossing guard, a helper where you might not expect relationships and interactions to be growing, but a place where I would think we learned quite a lot about what it means to be there for one another, what it means to connect, even in the smallest of moments. So Junlei, will you introduce us all, please, to Miss Paula?
Good morning. I like you here. Go ahead. Where's your jacket at?
I'm not cold.
You ain't cold? Okay. Where's your, I know, see, you got a jacket, huh? He said, I am. Good morning. She's grown up to be so beautiful. Look at her. Wow. I know. Wow. She looks just like you. That's your twin right there. Oh my. Good morning. Y'all go to the high school?
Yes.
All right. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
You're welcome, baby. And your lips is shivering.
All we care is about your face.
That's me too. That's the worst time when my face is cold. Yeah, I feel like, oh, mama, shh. I wish I could just warm you up. But if it's just like my hair, I'm good. Okay.
My face is cold.
Well, hurry up in then. It's time to go in, okay? Good morning.
Right.
Good morning. So, when are you going to know about the election? When you going to know if you won or not?
Okay.
Oh, huh. I got my fingers crossed for you. Even though I didn't get a cupcake, but I got my fingers crossed. Good morning, guys. Oh, your nails. Let me see your nails. All right, now. Let me see y'all of yours. All right, now. Go now. Your bad self. You cold?
Fall baby.
You a fall baby?
Yeah, my birthday's November.
See, I hold traffic for you. Good morning, baby girl. I like your little bun. Your mom did your hair? Tell her I give her 100%.
Still doesn't matter. All these years later, I hear Miss Paula's voice and I hear her laugh, and it puts an instant smile on my face. But my question is to all of you, and you have the ability to chat with us a little bit here. What is it that you noticed that Miss Paula's doing? And what difference do you think she makes in the lives of the children and youth who are crossing at her crosswalk every morning and every afternoon? What does Miss Paula do? Yeah, makes them feel seen. Yes, lets everyone know that she sees them. Gilda, you're right. What a way to start the day. Kelly adds, she is friendly and caring, helping the kids to start their day with a smile. I start mine with a smile when I hear her laugh, too. Heather adds, she encourages them. Karen says she acknowledges. It's absolutely true. Every child who comes to her crosswalk is seen and heard and acknowledged, even if it's a slight reprimand of asking where that child's coat is, or talking about an election, noticing the change of color on the nails, to sending a note home to mom that give her 100% on the hair. That she's connecting with every single child and young person who comes near her little spot there. Carol adds, she's really specific in what she says. She really is. She remembers. And this was about a month into the school year. And so she had a little bit of time, but you'll notice she doesn't have a lot of time for conversation. All of these moments are happening in mere seconds, but she's stringing them all together to have a conversation and to keep those connections going. Junlei, I'm going to put you on the spot. When you watch this video, and you've seen it thousands of times now also, but we know that every time we watch it, we can find something new. What is it that you notice? What do you see Miss Paula doing?
No, I remember when you first brought these recordings back to the office and we're looking at it. And of course, the first thing I was struck by was just how warm, and everything is. But I think it was only over time, as you had opportunities to talk to not just Miss Paula, but many crossing guard in the city, that we realized that this isn't just as simple as saying, oh, here's just a person who's just so naturally good with kids. Like, I think what she does was incredibly intentional. I think in the chat, I see Carol saying, she's really specific, right? And Karen writes that she acknowledges the children. And there's a couple of others who mentioned how about she sees them. So I just, even just in listening to that conversation, I was trying to picture like what information she actually has to keep track of in order to let each child know, or most of the children know, that she sees them, right? So, like I'm picturing like someone keeping a spreadsheet, right? Because every child comes through, glasses, coat, election, cookies. Like, I mean, I just couldn't imagine what that spreadsheet even looks like inside her head. And it takes so much intentional effort, right? On top of, just her kind of natural kind of, energy, I think, in this particular street corner. And she's not the only one. I think, you worked with all the other crossing guards in the city.
Love how you bring up the idea of intention, because it's true. This takes effort. Oftentimes we hear that people are either connecting people or not connecting people, and that there's no effort or learned behavior or ways that we can make ourselves better, or effort that we can give around connecting with others. And you can see Miss Paula works hard at the connections that she has. Not every crossing guard is doing this. I would say the vast majority in Pittsburgh are. I got to see a good number of them and have talks with them and eat breakfast with them. And they are bringing their mental spreadsheets to the job every single morning and taking them home with them every single night and thinking about the children. And Miss Paula said something really interesting to me when we were talking about her work. And she said that she doesn't know what happens to the children before they get to the crosswalk. And she doesn't know what happens to the children after they leave the crosswalk. But her responsibility is the crosswalk. And that speaks to the intention that she knows that she can be that consistent presence in children's lives. And it makes me think of the young boy, Junlei, that I told you about, who came over to me and asked me what I was doing with my camera on a street corner. And I explained to him what I was doing and asked him what he thought of Miss Paula. And he said to me that she wasn't there one day and he didn't know what to do. And it was because she wasn't there to say good morning. And he told me his whole day felt weird. It's a pretty big difference to make in very small but intentional moments.
I think what was so striking about the work of the crossing guards is that, Dana and I have had opportunities to travel, to different parts of the country, even several different countries, to just really look at how adults build relationship with children. But I don't think we have ever been to a setting before or since where the adult had so little time with children. It's probably, if you ask people, like, what's the hardest thing about building relationships? And I would say the number one answer is time. Like, I don't have enough time, whether you're a teacher, you're a parent, right? But I feel like someone like Miss Paula is at least one hopeful answer to the question, or to the refrain that I don't have time. Miss Paula has somewhere between 5 to 15 seconds in each of these interactions twice a day. So that's at most 30 seconds to a minute of time per child. And somehow she manages to make these 15 seconds count. And it was just so striking. And it taught us as a lesson about what it means to build relationships as professionals. And Dana, I know it certainly kind of gave us a sense of encouragement and hope as parents. Learning from someone like Miss Paula was just this encouragement, a reminder that when we do have the time, even if it was just a few minutes, we make the most out of it. What we learn from the crossing guards, as well as what we learn from helpers all around the places that we get to visit, is this kind of basic idea, right? This idea is as true in research as it is in everyday experience, that simple and everyday interactions are the basic building blocks of healthy human relationships. Certainly within families, within schools, within almost any context in which human beings are developing. I know it's easy, perhaps as parents, to be drawn to kind of, planning these big events and so on. But I think as children growing up, it's the small things. It's the putting on shoes and tying the coats and changing the diapers and feeding and cooking and all those little things that become kind of what human relationships are. And sometimes it's hard to go from that, right? To go from the simple everyday things to thinking about kind of much bigger things in terms of resilience, or in terms of their children's development or achievement, or whatever it might be. How do we matter, right? Through these small everyday experiences, 15 seconds or 15 minutes at a time. So I want to just share some thoughts from the developmental scientists over the last probably 2 decades in kind of putting together a picture that seemed to help to connect the dots between the simple everyday experiences, like the kind we just saw, to the kind of development all of us experience. So going back approximately 2 decades, right, there's much talk about this idea of adverse childhood experiences, or sometimes they're called ACEs. And adverse childhood experiences are usually defined on the extreme side by children's exposure to abuse, neglect, or other forms of household dysfunction, right? And whatever the causes, whatever the underlying social causes for these conditions are, these conditions represent to children kind of a rupture in the relationships that are closest to them. And as children experience the cumulative effect of these adverse childhood experiences, you can imagine that their overall development, right, their resilience, their brain, their heart, their stress response systems start to tilt or are tilted by these adverse childhood experiences, that their body start to respond as if they're anticipating the next one. Right? But hopefully, in the last few years, public health researchers in particular start to identify a parallel set of systems, a parallel set of experiences that they call positive childhood experiences. And positive childhood experiences are looking at the relationship children have and the safe environments that they have around them, the way they engage with friends, with school, and the way in which the people around them support their emotional growth. And so the way they assess these positive experiences are to ask adults, right, as they were growing up, kind of, are each of these things true, right, in the process of you growing up? So I'm just going to leave this up on the screen for a second so we can kind of can read through each item. And as you read through each item, I just want you to kind of think about perhaps the people and the places that may have enabled you to say yes to one or more of these items. So I'll be quiet for about a minute, just to give you a chance not only to read, but to perhaps think of some of the people and places that have been important to you, in relation to these questions. Trying to imagine, right, all the people and places that you're thinking of, and the kind of relationship you had with these people and places that would allow you, right, after all these years, to be able to say yes when you're asked each of these questions. In case you're interested to learn more about this work, we just wanted to point to our colleagues' project, Dr. Bob Segi, and the website or project is quite literally called the HOPE Project, this idea of healthy outcomes from positive experiences. And then I'm just going to bounce back to you. I know I probably haven't asked you that before. Kind of as you think about these questions, are there any people or place that jump out at you? I know you've seen the questions more than once.
Certainly there are, but I think I'm more struck by the fact that when you look across all of those and the many ways that positive experiences contribute to child development, that they're all based in the foundation of relationships. That is all about the very simple moments between people that really make all of those positive childhood experiences possible. That without relationships, none of those would be possible. And so again, it comes down to that space between people and how important that is. And Junlei, that's been the work that we've been doing now for quite some time, is to think about what does it look like to drill down to the smallest of levels when it comes to relationships. And at the core of relationships are these moments that when we ask people to define relationships, we could go on forever and ever. We don't have enough time tonight, that's for sure. They're all different kinds of relationships. And even in the list of positive childhood experiences, those relationships are different among people. But what's central to all of them is that they're built upon the foundation of simple everyday moments and interactions. That we feel our relationships through our interactions. And that is something that is nearly universal across all of this work, is that at the core of the relationships that you see with Ms. Paula, the core of the relationships that you just thought about among the positive childhood experiences, you likely thought of moments and everyday interactions that you had with those people that really brought those relationships to life. And over the last 2 years or so, those relationships may feel a bit different, or the way we build relationships may feel a bit different. Our interactions are different. In times that were more normal, I guess, or just maybe more reminiscent of a few years ago, we would see you right now as we're talking. Instead, we're imagining all of you there, and these interactions feel a little bit different. We have to channel our inner Mr. Rogers at times to talk with folks across a screen. And there are a lot of things that have changed because of the pandemic that we've been experiencing, and many things that have still maybe remained the same. At the core of our relationships are still these interactions, even though they might feel slightly different. And the last 2 years has certainly changed our work a bit, Junlei. One, we haven't seen each other for 2 years almost. It's been very challenging and a little bit different for us. But also, when your life's work is kind of built upon people being together, a global pandemic certainly throws a wrench in that, doesn't it? So we have adapted to how we think about interactions and relationships too. And the ability of technological advances and things like what we're doing right now to grow interactions and relationships. That these virtual means have become an everyday part of our lives and a way that we can connect with others. At the Fred Rogers Center, we were in the middle of a project around family engagement practices when March of 2020 happened. Hard to believe we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary now. And when we were, looking around in family engagement practices, we were filming families and educators working together. And now that they couldn't be together, we weren't quite sure what came next with our projects. However, we were hearing from many families that they were concerned about the level of technology use for their children, since school was now virtual and families were working from home, and meant that children had more screen time, and there was a lot of concern and worry there. And what we did is ask some of those families to show us what it looks like to have relationship-based interactions in the presence of technology. What could it look like to use these new tools that have become pretty much every day, every moment part of our lives in a way that contributes to relationships, not in a way that detracts, not in a way that diminishes, but truly serves relationship building. Now, we've got a couple of videos of what some of these self-submissions looked like, and we'd like to share just a few minutes of those with you tonight to show that even when life feels very, very different, that we can use small moments to connect and make the most of the moments that we have. Junlei?
Let's see. I remember watching this one. Do you want to give us some context for this
I
submission?
can give some context. Sure. So this is dad and daughter, and this was one where they were actually looking at an iPad, and mom snuck into the room with her iPhone, her phone camera, and just took this short clip So they're using the iPad and they're using an app called Libby, which is a library app. So it connects to your library card, and it's a way to gain access to free audiobooks and ebooks to take out, just like you would take a traditional book out of the library. And so they are searching for a book together. And this just happened to be what they were doing in this evening. And you know, luckily mom was stealth and got in there and got a video of it.
How do you find it? You go through search.
So I search this. So I search whatever book I want to find. So I'm just gonna do one that I'm sort of interested in. Oops. I made the typo.
Princess in Black?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to look for the third one. Alright, I
Find
need
them
to
on
know
audio.
number 4.
Oh, what's this one?
Oh, that one?
Mm-hmm. Is that one you already read?
No.
I'm gonna click on it and see which one it is.
Alright,
It doesn't say which one, huh?
I guess we could just get it.
Okay.
Alright.
So, I'm so thankful to this family's mom for not only capturing it, but sending it. I'm just thinking that, like, 20 years ago, when I was still in graduate school and I wasn't a parent yet, if someone showed me that moment, I would be like, oh, nothing's happening in this moment. But you know, when you showed me yesterday, I just thought, I love this moment precisely because on the surface, it looks like nothing's happening.
It really is the ultimate simple moment. And I think it shows that there is no moment too simple for a connection like this to happen between an adult and a child, or within a family. That, you know, this moment is something that probably happens a number of times. But the way that they engage with one another, the safety and trust that they have with each other, the conversation that comes just over something simple. Princess in Black must be a very popular book series right now. It's in my household as well. But it's, you know, it's a moment that I know I can imagine that I've had probably, but one that I may not think about as being all that important. And maybe that's the point. Is I remember when we were working with educators in family childcare, Junlei, and they would say to us, that's just what I do. That's not special. That's just what I do. I didn't even know what I was doing was right. How many of us as parents have said that? That's just what I do. I didn't know that was right. And that the simplicity of a moment like this can be so right and can be just what we do, but in that simplicity be contributing to the development of children in ways that we can't even imagine.
You know, Dana, if we were, you know, take a step back, as not just as parents, but let's put our kind of, you know, hat on and think about the interactions. Like, how might you map some of the dimensions with which we usually observe interactions to that moment, kind of on the grand scale? Sure.
So the first dimension we usually talk about when we think about interactions is connection. And when I watch that video, even though they're not face to face with one another, you can tell by their body language that they are mutually present with one another. They're in tune. They are emotionally engaged. You can just see it in the still frame there, that the connection is really strong. We also talk about reciprocity, which is kind of the give and take, back and forth. And you can see them trading back and forth, who's in control and who's leading and who's following. Each of them takes turns scrolling on the iPad to find the book that they're looking for. They bounce ideas off of each other. Is this the one? No, maybe it's this one. And it's seamlessly moving back and forth. And even as they're sitting there, they're working with each other around opportunities to grow, to find something new on this app that they're working together. That if we back the video up even further, it starts by dad asking her, how do you usually do this? Do you just type in a word? And she teaches him how to use the app. I know that happens quite often in my household now. It happened yesterday when one of my students from the college texted me something in text lingo that I didn't understand, and luckily my middle schooler could decipher it for me. So we know our children are teaching us about technology used all the time. So there's opportunities to grow for both kiddo and dad here.
That's right. And there's always a lot of kind of, viral YouTube videos about parents and children, and usually something, extraordinary, entertaining is happening. But it almost sometimes convey this impression that the interaction between adults and children have to be extraordinarily entertaining to be worthwhile. And but I so appreciate it. I think, I'm so glad to hear the backstory. So if mom appreciated what that moment meant for the family, and the family as a whole thought that moment was just important enough to the family to share with you, and now we get to share with everyone here. So I absolutely loved it. You have another moment, right, for us?
One more moment, and this one is slightly different. Again, it's being videotaped out in a park. We've got mom working with daughter using a really great app that allows you to identify bugs and different plant species and all types of creepy crawly things in the ground. And so there's, I believe grandma is with them and was videotaping them using this. And what I love about this is they completely forget that they're being videotaped. So they know it in the beginning because they have, signed on to help us out with this project. And they're just using this app and they get completely lost in what they're doing, looking for bugs, going on a bit of a bug hunt.
We found? It doesn't know what that one is.
It's a moth.
Yeah. It says it's an unknown species.
Look at that.
So look, come here, what did you find? Look, let's see. Oh look, there's what it is. Do you see?
It's a
geometer moth. Is it a red-headed inchworm?
no.
No. Oh look, is it this one right here?
What?
Does it look like this one at the bottom?
Does it?
Does it look like this? Look. Does it look like that? Kind of. Does it look like that?
No.
Not like that one? Does it look like that one?
Not really.
I think it looks kind of like this one. I think it's this one. This is a lesser maple spanworm moth. Here, do you want to select it?
Select.
Yeah. Let's go find some other things.
So, before we chat about it, I'd love to hear what our viewers thought of this moment. Like, again, it's just this ordinary moment, and Dana, like you were saying, I don't think they're even aware that Grandma is filming that moment. But what do we see? What little details do we notice in this kind of seemingly ordinary everyday interaction? Oh, that's great, Janine. They were physically leaning into each other, even though this wasn't even about a cuddling moment. They're there. Just like, earlier in the video earlier, the daughter and the dad were just leaning into each other, even though they're focused on something else completely. Jerica adds the mom is asking the questions. Matt added, I like how the mother allows the daughter to take hold of the bug identifier. she doesn't just say it's this one, And Carol adds, I noticed that at one point mom kind of held herself back. Yes, she did. I think she wanted to show the daughter something, and they asking each other questions, dictating, and Kelly adds it's them using technology together. The mom is staring at the phone, not one person staring at the phone and then ignoring their learning and working together. And Dana, I know that's something that you think and talk a lot about, right, in relation to the role that technology could play, right, in the connections between parents and children.
I fall back on thoughts, and I'll paraphrase them slightly from Fred Rogers around the use of technology. That technology itself is not good or bad, but it's how we use it and the value that we place on it. And what we've seen here, just in these 2 short videos, is that there are many ways to use technology in a way that strengthens and builds relationships. You can use it together in a way that feeds connection and learning and growing together for both sides. Mom probably didn't know that was spotted something or other moth. And she made a lot of space. Matt, I like that you noticed that too, that she made space for daughter to kind of take charge there and say, no, that's not it. I think it's this one, even though she may not have been right in that moment. And then it caused them to look closer together. And what I love most about this moment is that this moment can be the same if we take the phone away and replace it with a magnifying glass. Or we take the phone away and we replace it with a worksheet that has pictures of bugs. That so often we can jump from one side to the other, that technology can't be used to build relationships, or there's no use for it and it's only bad. And there are many ways to use it for good. And it's in thinking and being intentional about that use, just as we're intentional about the interactions that we have outside of technology. It's that intention that matters most. It's the quality of the moments that we can build.
Again, thank you for these 2 just beautiful, ordinary moments that you brought. But also, I'm so thankful for the families, right, to share these. I would say non-viral moments, but that really means so much, right? About what it means to be a family, and as we think through a list like this, right, for children to feel safe and protective, for children to feel like they can talk to their families, right, about how they feel, and their families stood by them. For children to feel that there are other adults, in their extended families who are interested in them, whether it's crossing guard or a teacher or a coach or mentor. All of these things, right, have to do with human relationships. And all these human relationships are built on these simple, ordinary moments and interactions. A person, whether a child or an adult, just doesn't go to another person and suddenly start to share all their feelings. It is through these moments of being together and through these moments of reciprocating, of listening, of letting someone else's lead, that eventually build up the foundation of trust that allows all these other things to happen. And when we think about the resilience scale, right, of a person's development, we can't, yes, there's going to be difficult experiences for children, some so much more than others. But there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these positive childhood experiences coming from these relationships built from these tiny little building blocks of the interactions. And when the cumulative impact of these positive childhood experiences start to outweigh, right, the adverse childhood experiences, then the balance tilts, right, towards positive development. And that positive development for a child, for an adolescent, is felt not just psychologically, but throughout their body, throughout their physiological systems. So even, in the past, in the research community, start to frame kind of around this idea of toxic stress, right? Stress that really impacts a person's development. They made the distinction, right, between the chronic and traumatic experiences, right, of these stressful experiences that take place in the absence of having these caring, stable relationship with adults, particularly during the early development, but as well as later on, and how that could be toxic, right, to the developing body, the developing brain. But at the same time, right, even under stressful situations, and I can imagine that over the last 2 years, the pandemic, almost any family have undergone stressful situations and conditions in a variety of ways. But that the difference between toxic stress and tolerable stress often comes from having the supportive, responsive relationship with caring adults around them. Some of these caring adults just have 15 seconds with you, like Miss Paula on the street, and then some of these caring adults connect with us through these very simple, ordinary moments, as what Dana just brought.
And it reminds me, oh, you have it up, of course. It reminds me of one of our favorite Fred Rogers quotes, which I think puts this idea of resilience in just a beautiful metaphor. That human relationships are primary in all of living. When the gusty winds blow and shake our lives, if we know that people care about us, we may bend with the wind, but we won't break. And isn't that resilience, really, at its core? Bending with the wind, but not breaking. When Fred says human relationships are primary in all of living, sometimes that can be belittled to thinking that all we need is just one person and that everything will be fine. But it's more than that. It's having that one person, of course, it's being that one person for another, but it's making sure that even in the smallest of moments, that those human relationships are recognized for the importance that they have. And that sometimes we never know if we're being the difference between bending and breaking for another person. Now, we all want to be that person for our families. Sometimes we need that person as a part of our family too. That we need the person to help us to bend with the wind, but not breaking. So it's that being and having at least one other person that truly matters. And makes me wonder if we can't take some of those positive experiences for children and think about them more collectively in terms of what it means to have positive experiences for entire families. That if we were to think about what it means to have the support of friends or a community, to have others outside of the family take interest in our families, feel safe and protected in our homes, that a lot of those same experiences help us as families to bend with the gusty winds, but not break.
Almost every speaker that we have comes and talks about, the permission to feel, and all emotions are important emotions, the hard ones, the good ones, and how as parents, we need to take care of ourselves. So we're there. One speaker talked about we're there to collect their emotional trash sometimes. So we have to get our own stuff together. Really, your message is just so very simple and so very critical. We have some students who are listening as part of their child care class in child development, and they asked me to ask you this question. What is the number one piece of advice that you would give to high school students regarding their human interaction when working with preschoolers? All of our schools have preschools as part of the curriculum, and so what's the number one piece of advice that you would give to the high school students regarding their human interactions when working with the preschoolers in their preschool? In the school?
What a great question. I think the number one piece of advice I would say is listen to the children. Listen first. Before you decide what is best for them or what they need, allow them to have a say in that decision too sometimes. I find that we can learn a lot by listening to the wisdom of even our youngest of children and what they'll share with you. And when they know you're listening, they know how special they are and how important they are to you.
And that doesn't shift as they get older, does it?
It really doesn't. I don't even think it shifts for us as grown-ups. We want to know that people are listening to us, that we are seen and heard and acknowledged, even in the simplest of moments.
We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, someone said, right? I know you. Janine, I know you have a question. And if others have questions, now's the time to enter them in the chat before we say goodbye, before we hear from Leah about the Children's Resource Center in Glen Ellen. So take it away, Janine.
Sure. I'm wondering, a couple times you both kind of mentioned kind of that pressure parents feel for every moment to be that viral moment. And I'm just wondering, like, if you're talking to a parent who's feeling that stress so much, what's that one thing you would tell them to help them notice those simple interactions? Like just that one little piece that might help them to recognize that within themselves, what is probably already happening.
So Lance, is typically when you and I would play rock, paper, scissors, but I can't see what you're doing. So am I going or are you?
I'll take a start to it, and then please. So I think the only thing that I wanted to mention is perhaps not so much in the moment, but I don't know, for all the parents who are out there, have you ever had the experience of your child telling you that there's something they remembered about being with you that you didn't? Or that you barely remembered, but somehow they really remembered it. And I think one thing that could serve as a reminder, even when we feel like, you know, we're not getting these quote unquote moments that we're supposed to get, you know, based on textbooks or other people's Instagram or whatever it is, that if we could just have faith that the kind of, you know, simple, ordinary moments that we invest ourselves in, that it doesn't have to be spectacular or sensational, and that in the end, that those are the moments that will be well remembered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not sure I can say it better than that. Well done.
You're a good tag team, you two, may I just say. Leah, do you have a question?
I do. First, I want to say what a powerful message. This really is the work, isn't it? It's incredible. Educators, coaches, youth workers, this is kind of the heart of the work that we all do. And you described it so simply, yet with detail and science behind it. And it was really a powerful message. So thank you. I would love to hear your thoughts on how perhaps language and cultural differences can be tended to in those positive interactions. And I say that coming from an organization that has a variety of students with different cultural and language backgrounds, and how can we as a community lean into those positive interactions when perhaps we are unsteady about how to do so.
Hey, I'll start, but Dana, you better fill in. So, right before the pandemic, Dana and I, the last time we got to work in a community in person was out in the Somerville community, just outside Boston. We were working in their pre-K, where they have, I think, one classroom. They had 20 children and 17 home languages.
Wow.
And more recently over Zoom, Dana and I have also been working together with 4 neighborhoods in Philadelphia, where there were, families and parents coming from all over the world. And so we've been thinking and talking a lot about your question about language and culture and what that meant by two human relationships. And the one thought that just keeps coming to me is perhaps one of the best known kind of metaphors in language development about culture, about children's identity, right? And this metaphor about what is it, the window, the mirror, the window, and the sliding doors, right? That as we engage in language, as we engage in culture, as we engage in literature, that we want to help children to have a mirror so that they can see themselves. We want them to have a window so they can see worlds outside. And then we want to open a sliding door so that they have an opportunity to access, right, the world and the opportunities that present themselves. And when we had the opportunity to work with teachers, with community-based literacy coaches and organizers, I feel like every time that's what they're doing, that they are creating every opportunity that can either serve as a mirror or a window or a sliding door. And they do it through the relationships that they build, not just with the children, but with the families as well.
Right.
Each one of those adults who are supporting that learning, there is a humility that comes with not knowing and being able to be to humble themselves to be a learner in that environment when they are expected to be a teacher, and that in teaching there is learning and in learning there is teaching, that those two things cannot be separated. And sometimes as the teacher, we can be called to be the learner and allow the children to guide us around a lot of these cultures and language and traditions that we may be unaware. I think that it falls to that humility sometimes that as teachers we are expected to know everything. And it's okay to admit that we don't, and to ask those around us for support and learning more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what a good thing to model for our children, that asking for help is okay, right? Last week we hosted Kristen Neff on her talk, The Power of Self-Compassion. And this seems to really fit so much with that. That's so much a big part of your message. One of our parents, one of our speakers mentioned that a parent was remarking about her own evaluation of herself as a parent. She said she was going to give herself now a pass-fail grade going forward. I thought that was wonderful. Thank you so much. We like to end by saying, go hug your kids. Nothing seems more appropriate than that tonight. I hope that when we say goodbye to Dr. Winters, Dr. Lay, I hope you will stick around while we hear from Leah Harding, the Executive Director of the Glen Ellen Children's Resource Center. So stick around, and to our speakers, can't thank you enough. You've really touched us, and we will remember your words, I promise. And share. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be well. And Leah, why don't you tell us, and thank you, Janine, as well, appreciate it. And for those still on the call and for our recording, tell us about the Glen Ellen Children's Resource Center that you organize.
Sure. The Glen Ellen Children's Resource Center is an after-school and summer tutoring program for students in Glen Ellen School District 41 and 89. And we have a small high school group at Glenbard West. And we are powered by volunteer tutors. So our students are from families that qualify for free and reduced lunch. Many are English language learners. And we provide cost-free after-school programming where they can spend time with our talented staff and a variety of community volunteers. We talked a lot about that relationship piece in this hour, and that is the heart of our program. So, for example, we'll have a student who on Mondays might have a tutor who is a retiree and is coming in, and they are connecting in a like a grandparent-child kind of relationship. The next day, perhaps a student will come in and they will have a high school student to do their homework with, and they can talk about things that what it's like to be in high school, or the latest videos, or things like that. And even just today, I was talking with Jackie Reeves, our director of program, and she was telling me about how some of our alumni from one of our elementary schools had come back today as a group, and they were sitting around playing Uno with the first graders, and just the power of that visual of these young students being able to see older students who had gone to the same school as them coming back, giving of their time and their interest to spend time with the next generation of kids. So we have over, how many? Over 100 tutors this year, and we're always looking for more. This is truly a community-based organization, and we are always looking for people that want to reach out and connect with a child. We have K through 8th grade availability for tutoring, and if you are interested, you can go to our website, which is www.gecrc.com. I know it's a little bit of a tongue twister. I'll put it in the chat. I'll also put my contact information in the chat as well if you'd like to reach out and learn a little bit more about us. We just love being part of the Glen Ellen community, and we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year as a trusted and valued community partner. So we are so appreciative of all the people that make up GECRC each year and all these years. So thank you for having me on this conversation. What a powerful message tonight.
Thank you for the work that you do. I know you will take this back to all of those that you work with. Once again, could it be any simpler than what we heard tonight? No. And Leah, thank you so much. The work that you do. What a sense of pride, source of pride. 20 years in the making. Wow. And all the children that have really been touched by this resource and growing all the time. Stronger than ever. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Stronger than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Come back, share, and we'll hug the kids now, okay? Okay. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.